Welcome to the Morning Nerdy News. I'm your host, Gray Falcon. Today, we have several interesting stories, everything from an update on Epic to the new Season 2 of The Boys. So stay tuned to catch all that news and everything in between. First up, we're going to go ahead and get into the big story for Epic versus Apple. And we're going to go to Kotaku for this one. So if you're over on this page, they have information including statements from the judge in this initial hearing. Now, this initial hearing was simply for Epic going in and trying to stop Apple from preventing their services from working. So that includes the Epic Game Engine, Fortnite, basically everything related to Epic from being stopped from the developer tools. What we have happen is the judge came in and looked at this and said, first of all, the Epic Game Engine is overstepping for Apple. They can't block that. That affects too many businesses. This is not something where it is just Epic being affected. This is affecting third-party companies, development of other projects, where the issue here is specifically Fortnite. And when Apple retaliates, they have to specifically deal with Fortnite. They can't go against the entirety of the company for this. They can't affect third-party game companies because they don't like what Epic did with Fortnite. They can only deal with the individual product, and in this case, that being Fortnite. Now, Apple has said that they have done this type of thing in the past where if you go in and violate the rules, we block everything. And the judge said, no, you're overstepping on that. You're going too far. When it comes to these things, it needs to be directly related to the product that is having an issue. So this is a temporary verdict. Again, this is just something to cover their basis until the final hearing can be heard at the end of September. So we're going to have a little while before we even get into that. And that final hearing, I believe, is just to set up and hear the initial cases. And then we'll have a continued court trial going from there. So don't expect this to be a fast process overall. They did, however, agree with Apple's right to block Fortnite on their devices. So effectively, where the violation comes into play is during a hotfix, Epic had their V-Bucks store added in to Fortnite. So you could go in and buy currency at a cheaper price than you could through the Apple Store. So when you went in to make that purchase, it would pop up two separate stores and it said, which one would you like to buy from? And one was clearly cheaper than the other. And Epic saying that, yeah, we make a little more money on this, but the player actually spends less because they're getting a 20% discount by them bypassing the 30% charge that Apple takes out of it. So Epic makes 10% more in this case, and the consumer saves 20% overall. So it's a win-win for everyone in that perspective, except for Apple, because Apple is no longer getting a cut of this for supporting the platform that makes it possible to even be able to play these and do this in the first place. So Apple's over here looking at this going, no, you can't bypass us. We created the ecosystem, we built the platform, and if you want to play games on our platform, we need to get a cut. This is something that Steam does. This is something that Epic does on their own store where they take a cut of the profits. So it's not like we have a situation here where Apple is completely in the wrong either, because they have to support and maintain all the devices that make it possible to play on. Epic doesn't own the iPhone. They don't own your iPad. So they're not there doing the hardware support, doing the other support that these funds need to go in to help take care of. Not that Apple doesn't have lots of money, but keep in mind, Epic has a ton of money themselves. Now, Epic admitted that they did go out of their way to violate these terms, but they talk about in this article how they knew they had to go big. They knew they couldn't just go at this in a small way and have it in a manner where public opinion was not it's a balancing act in this particular case. Epic thinks that Apple is taking too much money and has a closed ecosystem that is preventing people from having competition, which they are preventing people from there being competition, which allows them to set the rates. And Epic says, we want to have competition in this run. But by doing this, they've told Apple, we're going to give you competition, and we're going to make sure that you can't get a cut of anything from the platform that you maintain and is required for us to earn this money over here. So I'm sure we're going to see some sort of balance. Hopefully we see a potential cut in what Apple actually takes in prices. Perhaps they do allow the Epic Store to go through eventually, but Apple says if you're going to have your Epic Store on here with your V-Bucks, you're going to have to give us a percentage of that. Maybe it's not the full 30, maybe they take 10% instead in order to allow that competition, in order to allow these things to happen. But we'll see how all of this falls. So currently, developers will have their tools back. Fortnite is not going to be on the store. You can still play through if you already have the game downloaded, but you will not get any updates until this is resolved. So if you have another way of playing Fortnite that you enjoy, just head over there and do that. I know for some people it's the only place that they have it available to play, and this honestly sucks for them, but this is the situation that we are in, and the judge said at this point Apple has every right until antitrust is proven and things can be changed or overturned. It's also entirely possible Apple wins this and they look at it and go, this is their platform. They have the right to earn money and they set the price. So no different than PlayStation and Xbox getting $10 for every game that's sold or purchased on their setup. So we'll see how that plays out. Going over to our next story here on Kotaku as well, we have the first look at Dragon's Dogma anime. So if you were a fan of the video game, this game has been out for a little while now. This was a PS3, Xbox 360 era game. But unfortunately, I feel like it hasn't aged super well. I have picked it up on Switch. I have had some fun playing it, but it definitely looks dated, especially when you can go and get something like The Witcher 3 or The Outer Worlds over there and enjoy one of those experiences. But being able to bring this world into light, bring it up, and have something fun like an anime come out, is pretty big. So if you are a fan of Dragon's Dogma or just curious about that, you can come check out this trailer, see what the show is going to be, and maybe you'll have some interest and want to pick up the game later on as well. Then heading over to Wccftech, we have new Borderlands DLC coming out. This is DLC number 4, and it's launching on September 10th. The DLC is called Craig and the Fantastic Flustercluck. It's set to launch on September 10th and will be included in Borderlands Season 3 Pass. So if you're a Borderlands fan, you've been waiting for new updates, here you go. We've got your first update coming September 10th for this new DLC. And then we have update on New World, which is Amazon's new MMO, and it's showing a massive 50-50 PvP battle, and they've covered it. They've got some screenshots and I believe a video down here where you can watch and see more about the game, but effectively this becomes available today, so for the beta. So if you've signed up for beta access, if you pre-ordered in 2016 and you cannot pre-order as of today, your pre-order had to be in before today to be able to gain access to this. And there are going to be separate waves of this. So wave 1 is going to give access to the alpha testers, all the people who meet the pre-order requirements for the beta. So if you signed up for the beta, it's before July, and I believe it's July 19th. You can head over to Real Worlds to see that specifically. And then anyone who pre-ordered the game back in 2016 and a whole list of it, but effectively the people who just signed up for the beta before August 25th, there's up to 5 waves. So these are the people who haven't invested anything in it or haven't put in for the beta early. The game, as IGN talks about, seems like it doesn't have a whole lot to do with dungeons and raids like a typical MMO. They try and avoid a lot of some of the grinding that you normally see in an MMO, and this is going to be a different kind of setup where the world has events that are regularly happening, and those events alter the world and alter the effects of things. So this is something that Rift did way back in the day. This is something that we've seen Anthem try to implement, and it's just it's one of those things that it can be entertaining, it can be fun if it is constantly and regularly updated, but the events have to be updated quickly. They have to have something already in progress, and they have to have a long build out of stuff that's coming up. Otherwise, it will get dry and repetitive. In Rift, those special events, they would pop up all over the world, but they were largely the same. There were a few that were different, but they were largely the same, and they started to get old. And by the time they got new special events out there and available, they had lost a lot of their player base. So hopefully they've spent this extra time trying to develop some of these other things that players will be interested in for growing with this. Over to Bloomberg, we have some Nintendo hardware news where they talk about Nintendo plans to upgrade the Switch console and major games for 2021. And this basically covers information such as faster processing, the possibility of 4K on the Switch, battery attention to battery life, I believe, was in here. So this is kind of touching on a lot of the rumors that we heard. It's very likely that we're actually going to see this come to fruition, and this is what Nintendo has kind of become. They're the handheld company. Now, the Switch is more than just a handheld, and they realized that if they could make something more than just a handheld while still being a handheld, they could sell millions upon millions, and they can do iterative steps up with it, just like when you go and buy your cell phone. They're like, here's your next version, here's your next version. Every few years you upgrade, you spend that another $200-300 in order to get that new device that has those few extra features, and it really just becomes a situation where we have DS, the new DS, the 3DS, the 2DS, the new 2DS, the new 3DS, and they can just make these iterative upgrades with minor changes, and let's be honest, so many people are going to go out and buy those. Your old Switch starts to break down, they expect that. So we have a couple of Switches in our home, and our kid took one of them and cracked the screen because he didn't put it in the case for the weekend. And you can send that in to get fixed, but Nintendo's going to charge you $100, assuming you can even get it fixed right now because their repair center is pretty much down. Our youngest son, who's had a Switch for years, walks around with it everywhere, watches videos constantly. Thing never gets put down except for when he's eating, for the most part. Loves that thing. He's constantly watching YouTube videos and learning about history on it, or playing video games, and he spends a lot of time watching history videos. Believe you me, he loves that. He'll put on another game somewhere and have a history video playing while he's playing his game. So that thing is used constantly, but we've seen his Joy-Cons start to have issues where they don't stay on, and he doesn't even remove his Joy-Cons from the system, but he holds it and uses it so much that they have gotten loose and they don't stay on the sides very well. And then, he's a kid, so he's dropped it and it's cracked a couple of times. We've already replaced the screen once on it. His little kickstand no longer stays on there. He now has processing and software issues, probably from heat buildup from playing it a lot. So it's one of those things where we wanted to get it repaired, we wanted to send it in, and we couldn't. Nintendo doesn't have any product available to actually check this out. So we've had to have him, we got him a Switch Lite is what we ended up doing. And now we don't have to worry about the controllers breaking and things. Now the downside is the Switch Lite doesn't have the kickstand on the back, and that drives him up the wall. We had to 3D print him a stand for it. Moving on to our next news story, we have an update in regards to Nvidia's graphics cards, but this is for water blocks for the GeForce RTX 30 series. And company EK is readying water blocks for the series, and they say that they will be available close to launch. So if you're someone who likes water-cooled graphics cards, now I don't know if they also build the pre-built ones. I've been a fan of the EVGA ones where the water block is already built onto a base card and you can just hook it up. But if you're someone who likes to have the hard piping or soft piping run to cool your system with all the colored water and stuff, you can expect that these will be out close to launch, but it's not going to be at launch. You'll probably have to wait a week or two, maybe a month, for these to actually become available. And in some funnier news, Apple's new spherical store in Singapore looks like a Death Star. This is also coming from Wccftech. This is kind of entertaining because given how bad Apple is looking in people's eyes right now, given how good of a job Fortnite is doing with everything, having a store that makes them look like the evil empire probably doesn't help things. But it is a really cool looking store. The red apple really stands out with the nice light effects around the bottom. So it is a fun little thing to look at, but it does amuse me that this kind of just helps cement the whole idea of they're coming to get you. Do what they say or they will destroy you. And last up, of course, The Boys Season 2 is set to premiere here on September 4th, I believe. So if you haven't watched that on Amazon Prime, go check that out if you have Amazon Prime, because it's a fantastic show. It takes a look at superheroes from the perspective of, when they're not out saving the world, they're not really the best of people. They're government contracted heroes, and because they're government contracted, they kind of just get away with whatever they want in their off hours. Those things get covered up. And there's a group of people who have been affected by this and want to go out and show that if you're not actually holding up to the standard that you're supposed to be, that there are people that are going to go out of their way to make sure that you're put in your place. And so it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. Season 2 is about to come out, so IGN already has their review on the first episode. If you haven't, remember to click that follow button and help me out getting towards those followers. And if you like to watch this later on, I edit these videos and get them shortened, cut out some of the extra conversation, so it's just the actual news stories going through over on YouTube under Gray Falcon as well. And then if you find any stories or just want to chat with me when I'm offline, follow me on Twitter as The Gray Falcon. I will catch you all later. Have a good one.